Apparently, the natural laws of our universe don't operate here, Captain.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks again for the new subscribers. It's slowly going up, which is really lovely to see, and I'm getting better at this, so that's slowly improving as well. Yeah, I want to do something quite different again. Like the last video I did was a bit different, or not the last one, but second to last one or something. The Spider-Man one was a film review, which I haven't been doing on this channel, and this is slightly different because this is a review of a TV series. It's also linked to a series of books, so it is linked to the books, but really the motivation for doing this is more about a TV series. So I have already mentioned the author in my top 10 graphic novels video, which was ages ago, and I talked about this The Electric State by Simon Stålenhag, which is an absolute phenomenal book. It's a beautiful book. It's described as a narrative art book rather than a graphic novel book, and I think that's because the artwork is more important than the text, which is unusual because clearly with graphic novels it's usually 50-50. Obviously the special thing about graphic novels is the artwork, but with this it takes more precedence with Simon Stålenhag stuff. But this book is just an absolutely incredible book, and it did make a lot of waves when it came out, and lots of people were reviewing it highly, recommending it, and I've heard nothing but praise for it. So it's not massively surprising that other books followed, but also that somebody thought, hey, let's make a TV series out of this. So that's what they did, and this was at least a year ago, over a year ago. So I'm a little bit late in seeing the whole series. I was very excited when it came out, but various reasons why I couldn't see it straight away. I have seen it now, and it blew my mind, and I wanted to do a video on it. But this was the first book that put Simon Stålenhag's name everywhere, and his artwork is what the book's based on. So I'll spend a bit of time just sharing some of this artwork on all of the 3 books that he's written so far. Apparently there's a 4th one that's either about to come out or has just come out, called Labyrinth, I think it's called, which I want to look into. But I'll just show you a bit of this first. as you can see, those pieces of artwork that are in those books, really evocative, kind of melancholic, and there's this sort of weird juxtaposition of kind of human stories with these huge mechanical objects and mechanical buildings and mechanical structures, and that's kind of dwarfing the smaller stories in these books. The first book is a narrative book, and it's a really fascinating and powerful and evocative story that's quite mysterious, and it's not really absolutely pinned down what exactly happened. And that first book being a narrative book, I think makes it superior to the other two. The other two are little vignettes, so there's like little story, like very short anecdotal stories connected to the artwork. So still really good, but not quite as good as the first book. But clearly this artist, Simon Stannenhag, has got an amazing visual eye and can make these beautiful pictures, and was then asked to make a series. There's a guy called Nathaniel Halpern that came up with the idea of making a TV series out of these concepts, and he brought Simon Stannenhag on as producer, and Matt Reeves was the producer as well. Matt Reeves is the director of the 3 reboot Planet of the Apes films, which I think are amazing. He's also the director of the new Batman film, which is going to be brilliant. So interesting guy. Anyway, they came up with this idea of how they were going to interpret the books with this idea of the loop, which is this scientific structure where it's built around a particle accelerator, which then creates these unusual phenomena around the town, and this sort of messing around with physics and these kind of unexpected results from these experiments. So that's the backdrop of the story. But ultimately, this series is 2 things. One, they're very human stories that are built around these Twilight Zone-esque twists on physics. But 2, this Amazon series has got a very specific tone that's really quite different and quite melancholic, eerie. Some people have said meditative, which I think is true. And I think it's a really powerful series. So I wanted to talk about that after just talking about the books there. So basically, Tales from the Loop is a series that is 8 episodes long, so not many episodes. It's on Amazon Prime. I think it was produced by Amazon Prime. It's an original production by them. The episodes basically take into account different members of this town, different people who lived in this town, and a lot of it's around one particular family as well. And the grandfather or father, depending on who you're looking at, in the family built the loop, and he's played by Jonathan Pryce, which is very cool. Jonathan Pryce, important guy for me because Jonathan Pryce played Mr. Dark in the 80s Something Wicked This Way Comes, and he also played Sam Lowry in Brazil, which for many years was my favourite film. So nice to see Jonathan Pryce again. You guys might have seen him in Game of Thrones because he was the Sparrow, I think his name was, the kind of monk that was causing a lot of trouble for Cersei in Game of Thrones. So yeah, Jonathan Pryce plays the character that created the loop, and his family have got different stories within this series. And there are other people in the town that also get their own story as well. So it's 8 episodes, and they take on different aspects of this twist in physics that the loop is creating. So like I said, it's got a very Twilight Zone-esque quality to it. I am definitely going to talk about Twilight Zone in a lot more detail in one of these videos because it's so influential, it's so important, and I love it so much. I named my band after the Twilight Zone, and all of our albums are episode titles as well. Very, very passionate about Twilight Zone. So I love it when there are things that are kind of similar. So, I love the fact that Black Mirror is so heavily influenced by the Twilight Zone. And there's so many films around that you could say could have been short Twilight Zone episodes if they'd been shorter. And this has definitely got that quality. I'd say also the tone and the pacing of it is also quite old-fashioned. So it could have been made in the late 50s. And some people have been turned off by that. They've said it's too slow or too dull or, not enough going on. So it definitely doesn't have that sort of 2021 pace. That's definitely true. But I think it's really powerful from that point of view, really. I think it really does have this eerie quality to it and a very sort of emotive quality, I think. So let's talk about the episodes.
Well, if it's part of a scientific experiment, I suppose it's all right.
So the first episode is the weakest one of the lot. And I know that some people have watched the first episode and not gone any further. So if you're intrigued by the concept and you didn't go beyond the first episode, I'd definitely recommend you keep going and watch it till the end. The second episode is one of the best. It's an incredible episode. So you will get a sense of if you like the series from the second one. But I think the first one is a bit of a red herring because it does set up the situation, sets up that sort of twist in physics, but it doesn't really do it in a massively successful way. So I think it's definitely the weaker of the 8 episodes. It's called Loop, and really it's about the Jonathan Pryce's character's daughter, played by Rebecca Hall. So it's really about that. I'm going to try not to spoil the episodes by telling you exactly what happens, but I'm going to tell you the general gist of what happens and what I think of them. But this first one is definitely the weaker of the 8 episodes. The second one is amazing. When we went to the second one thinking, oh well, the first one was kind of interesting, but we'll see how this goes, kind of thing. And the second episode was so powerful. It was literally it was on my mind for the next 24 hours. It's one of the best things I've seen for a long time. And it's not just the concept of it, it's how it played out. And even the last 30 seconds of the episode is so powerful. I'll tell you a little bit about what the idea is, because how they play with that idea is not a spoiler. It's not predictable. So the idea of these two best friends, very different people. One's quite sort of intellectual and scientific, and the other one's quite sporty and not very intellectual. So very polar opposites, kind of stereotyped opposites, but really close friends because it's a very small community. So I think that's part of the reason why they're so close. You get that sense in the atmosphere of the way it's filmed as much as anything else. It's a very small town, so really good, close friends, and then they find this sphere that they're just curious about, and they go in, or one of them goes in just for a laugh, and they discover that when Jacob, the guy that goes in, comes out, they've switched bodies. Not going to say anything more, but yeah, it's amazing, and really, yeah, I don't even want to say what any more adjectives about why it's amazing, except yeah, powerful stuff. So yeah, that episode's called Transpose, and that's the idea of that episode. The next episode is called Stasis, and that one is that sort of great idea, we've all thought about it, of just stopping time. My first short story I ever wrote was about time being able to be controlled, and time travel is a real fascination for me. I've read tons and tons of time travel books. Time is such a fascinating concept. I always feel like I'm fighting time all the time. It's like my biggest enemy. So anything that plays with that kind of thing really fascinates me. And this is a story based around this girl who wishes love would last forever. So that feeling of that first kind of excitement of feeling like you're in love for the first time, wishes that would last forever. And why does it all go wrong, kind of thing, why does it have to go wrong, why can't we let these things last forever? And basically she finds a device that allows her to stop time, basically stops everything else from moving except her and her boyfriend. And I won't go any more further, but shades of Henry Bemis going on here with Twilight Zone episode Time Enough at Last. You know that Henry Bemis would just want to read books, but she wants to explore the idea of just having a lot of time with her new boyfriend without any kind of anyone having a go at them or that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's explored in that episode, and it's brilliantly done. Again, very powerful, all about relationships, and doesn't quite pan out. Again, there's the tone of this series. I mean, that could be something that puts people off, I guess, but the tone of the series is quite melancholic. So these aren't necessarily happy endings, but that was true for the Twilight Zone. They weren't very often happy endings. So yeah, that sort of bounces off that idea that you wish time could be stopped and you wish love could last forever, that kind of thing. So that's the idea of the third episode. The fourth episode, again, it's a very melancholy series, and that is about mortality. So this is mostly about Jonathan Pryce's character and his grandson Cole. Right early on in the episode, they find something called an ecosphere, and basically Jonathan Pryce's character tells Cole that if he shouts in it, the amount of times it echoes is how much life they've got left in them. And Cole does that, and there's lots and lots of echoes. And Jonathan Pryce's character does it, and there's not a lot of echoes. And that kind of sets up the rest of the episode. And it's a beautiful episode. I want to talk a little bit later about the way the dialogue works and stuff like that. But for now, just rattling through the episodes, powerful episode. And that's really about mortality and how his grandson Cole deals with that kind of subject. The fifth episode is called Control. Such a brilliant episode. This family have already been affected by the events in Transposed, the second episode. So this is a bit of a spin-off to that episode, but from a slightly different angle. And the father's become very obsessed, if you like, with the fact that he couldn't protect his son, wants to protect the family. There's sort of issues of masculinity in there, really, from some of the dialogue. There's issues of that idea that he's the great protector and the great provider, so feels like it's his job to protect the family. He starts getting a bit paranoid, and there's just a lot of tension in the house that he thinks he's solved by this mechanical device he's found, and he's bought it to try and fix the issue in the house. It's a brilliant episode. You don't know what's going to happen next, and some of it's really tense because it was a crazy thing to do, and he's got his little daughter playing with this robot, and yeah, it could have gone horrifically wrong. So that's called Control. The sixth episode, called Parallel, that's about a man who is really lonely, can't find love, and this sort of idea, this Twilight Zone idea of some sort of fantasy element being in there that you can't really put down to physics is definitely present here, because he's fantasizing about this man, this mysterious man. He doesn't know what the context is, and it's a picture that he found in one of the mechanical devices he's trying to fix. It's like a big tractor, and basically he ends up falling into a parallel world where he meets a doppelganger of himself and this fantasy man character that he was hoping to meet one day, the sort of dream lover, if you like. His doppelganger is really pleased to see him, invites him to stay, and he's living with his doppelganger and his fantasy man, and it just gets complicated in a really well done way. And again, melancholy is the tone of the whole episode, but it's just beautifully done. So that's called Parallel. That's the sixth episode. The seventh episode, another one of my favourites, is called Enemies, and this is about, again, a character that's been in it all the way through, but we haven't seen the origin of why he's got a mechanical arm. So one of his arms is a mechanical arm, and we don't know why, but it's explored in this episode, and that's done really well. And it's all about when he's younger, him and his two mates go on this island because there's this mysterious monster on there, and they sort of, for a laugh, they go and find out what it was, and it all gets a bit hectic, and he's left on his own, and stuff happens, and basically it sort of develops his story about him growing up, and about the monster on the island. So that monster on the island is brilliantly explored as well. So yeah, again, not going to spoil anything, but a beautiful episode again. And the last episode, Home, really is a more direct sequel to the second episode, Transpose, where Cole is trying to deal with the fact that, well, I can't say what he's trying to deal with because it will spoil it, but he's trying to deal with the events of the episode called Transpose, the second episode, and how he deals with it is, again, beautifully done, really sensitively done. You really feel for him, and in a time-honoured tradition, doesn't necessarily go well. So yeah, that's the last episode of the series, and it just finishes in a really beautiful way that you just think, this is very special. This is quite a unique series. I can't think of anything else that's exactly got these different elements in it. Obviously, it's got influences, like he mentioned, in Twilight Zone. It's got lots of other influences in its tone, and clearly it's not, out of nowhere, but it's still got a uniqueness, I think, that makes it quite special. So I want to talk a little bit about the directors and the dialogue and the music before I close up. So yeah, Nathaniel Halpern had this idea of creating this series out of this artwork. One director in particular that he worked with a lot on the series is Mark Romanek. So Mark Romanek made lots of rock and pop videos. So he's a video director for lots of music videos, but he's also done two other major things. So one of them is major thing in the sense of very popular, which is Never Let Me Go, which is a science fiction story, again, based around characters with twists in it, quite Twilight Zone again, but a very popular one. Andy Garfield's in it, and Carey Mulligan and Keira Knightley, three big names. It was a really big film when it came out. So he did that, he directed that. But for me, what's really special about seeing his name there, the fact he directed a lot of these episodes, is he directed a film called Static, which came out in 1985. And that film has always been an important film for me. It was quite an important film as I was only 14 when it came out, and it really introduced me to independent cinema and expanded my imagination in a big way. So a film called Static, amazing film about a man who, like a teenager, who's trying to tell the town that he's found heaven on his TV screen, and all they can see is static, but he can see heaven. He's trying to convince them that that's what it is. It's a really beautiful story. Again, not very happy ending. Why am I spoiling these things? But an amazing film. If you ever get a chance to see it, it was never released on DVD, I don't think. I wore out my VHS version. But yeah, a film called Static, amazing film. Anyway, he directed that. So that was pretty cool. And the last episode is directed by Jodie Foster, which is also really interesting because she's quite an artistic director when she does her own projects. But there's a consistent tone for the whole series. And like I've been saying, it's this sort of eerie, mysterious, meditative, melancholic tone. And that stays throughout the whole thing. But a big part of that is the music. All of the music is written as a co-writing project by one composer, I've forgotten his name, and Philip Glass. So Philip Glass, if you know Philip Glass's music, he's one of the big minimalist composers. If you know Philip Glass's music, then you'll know how that really does create a tone that will give you an indication of the tone of the show. So that's pretty cool. And also the dialogue that's written, I think it's really interesting that it's kind of sparing, but quite emotive as well. But it's there's not a lot of dialogue. If you like, there's not long speeches, or it's not particularly poetic. Some of it's quite minimalist dialogue, and it's like some of it's functional, but it's done in a really clever way that doesn't feel functional. It feels quite emotive. So I think that also adds to the atmosphere as well. So anyway, this has been quite a long video on something that I think is pretty unique and blew me away. I don't know how many, maybe I'm tempted to do a TV thing a month. I don't know. If you like this, make a comment. Maybe I can do more TV stuff. But Tales from the Loop and Simon Stanley Hug's books. Amazing. Amazing. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this. Ask me to do something else if you like what I'm doing but don't particularly like some of the content. And I'll see you around. Thanks.